That's right. And a lot of parents always ask me, "Hey, I'm struggling. My husband doesn't believe the way I do on this, or my wife doesn't feel like this. What do you think we ought to do?" And I say, it doesn't matter. You just need to be together in what you're doing, and how that fleshes out is going to look different, but you need to come together.
Good word. We'll explore that here today, and we'll welcome back Chelsea Cameron to the program, who's the wife of Kirk Cameron.
That's right.
Someday we'll have to have Kirk on for equal time.
Yeah.
We love talking with Chelsea, so she'll be with us today in the program. Hey, have you checked out Tough Guys and Drama Queens at our website, parentingtodaysteens.org? It's available right now at a special discount price. Tough Guys and Drama Queens at parentingtodaysteens.org. Encouraging husbands and wives to be on the same team and dealing with their teens. If you're not together in the good times, when your teen begins to spin out of control, the wheels are going to come off.
That's right. You need to have the right perspective. There's no doubt. Mom, Dad, a marriage doesn't grow on its own. It needs intentional care. You need to be focused on saying, how do we continue to grow? I've been married 39 years. I married my childhood sweetheart, a little girl I started dating in 9th grade. And what I have found is that the love that I've had for her has grown and grown and grown. But it's interesting to me how I've got to keep working at that, just as intentional as I was when I was in the 9th grade, wanting to date her and spend time together. And I've got to set that time apart and say, I'm going to focus on you, honey. This is where we get to spend some time together. It's important.
Yeah, Mark, you really have to be intentional. We've learned that as well, and any good marriage follows that, don't they?
That's right. A healthy relationship between mom and dad aids in healthy relationships to the family.
The whole family benefits.
That's right. You can't be healthy unless mom and dad are healthy. And so my comment is, whenever you start struggling or having a difficult time within your family, you've got to back off a little bit and make sure that your relationship is intact. You say, well, I can't leave home. I'm afraid my child's going to take the car out. They're going to drink. They're going to burn the house down. You've got to take that time. Don't let your kids consume you. And somebody asked me, which is more important, your relationship with your spouse or your relationship with your kids? And unequivocally, it's your relationship with your spouse. Take care of that, and then you'll find that your relationship with your kids will be a little bit different because of the way that you guys love one another.
That's such a good word. All right, let's talk about some practical steps today to staying together as a team, as husband and wife.
That's right. Watch out for too much criticism, number one. The tendency is that husbands and wives can vent their frustration with parenting by criticizing one another. You can be different in your styles. You know what? The way that I engage with my kids is completely different than the way my wife engages. She cares about academics. I don't. I care about character. She focuses on doing chores around the house. I spend time wanting to have fun. She spends time wanting to have deep conversations. She wants to spiritualize everything. I want to flesh it out and have spiritual experiences. We're just totally different.
But think how good that is together.
Well, it is, and that's the point. Jan and I are different. We have different parenting styles, and I engage a part of my kids that she doesn't, and she engages another. So the point of it is that we need to be together on what we're doing, but we need to maintain our differences because that's how God has created us.
And criticism or blaming each other just drives a wedge.
It does. It's important to talk things out. The tendency is when I go, well, you didn't handle that right, or you didn't, you know what, it doesn't matter. The issue is not whether my wife handled things right, it's whether I'm handling things right. She needs to do what she needs to do. She's old enough to know that. I don't have to be her dad in correcting her. She doesn't need to be my mom correcting me all the time. I need to let her do what she needs to do. I need to do what I need to do. And this criticism of one another, or the nagging back and forth, or too much criticism, just has a way of splitting the relationship, and that means that you're not together when you criticize.
And if we're not careful, this back and forth can lead to a mentality that my spouse is my opponent.
That's right.
Rather than my teammate.
That's right, not the teammate, and that's what you want. A team. What people don't realize is that a team, they all don't do the same thing. Everybody does different things.
They all have their place.
That's right.
Their role, their part.
That's right. Jan thought that academics was so important. I didn't, because I wanted to focus on the relationship.
But aren't you glad your kids did well academically because
Absolutely.
of Jan?
And she's excited that they do well relationally with us. It's both and. It's not either or. We don't have to have the same emphasis in the strategy, but we've got to agree to the strategy that we can walk a path that we're going to be walking together. We're not walking on separate paths.
All right, if we've fallen into this mentality that, we're working more against each other than with each other, how do you overcome that?
I think you sit down and go, honey, we need to figure this one out. We're on two different paths here. Let's figure a way for us to be on the same path, because the tendency is most men think if you don't do it my way, then you're wrong, and then women think if you don't do it my way, then I'm going to keep telling you until you do it my way. I mean, I think that's the nature.
Boy, you got it all figured out.
Well, I'm probably talking more about me and my wife, but I mean, I think that's the tendency of relationships. And somewhere along the line, it's given permission for everybody to have a different way or a different way of engagement, that they enjoy their kids so that they don't have to be opponents, that they can come together and be teammates.
And in your writing, you also say that even if you don't feel like it, you need to act like you're on the same team, and feelings will follow.
That's right. It will. Sometimes I don't agree with my wife all the time. But I know that's hard to believe.
No.
And there's many times that she doesn't agree with me. That doesn't mean she needs to change me or she doesn't need to voice that disagreement. It's just a different way of engaging. And so that's where I think trust comes into the relationship. In those times that I don't trust Jan, I've always said this: I'll trust you when you're right, and I'll trust you when you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And I just let it go.
We've said it many ways, but the bottom line is always you can't change the other person. You got to start with yourself. But if you do that, if you work at changing yourself, everybody's going to benefit.
That's right. Because there's only one person that I can change, and then there's me. The third thing here is think about your own growth. Don't force your spouse's growth. Growing personally, it begins with me. And I think what people forget, Wayne, is that our tendency is always to correct other people rather than looking at ourselves. And the very basic scripture, I think a fundamental scripture, is before you look at the speck in somebody else's eye, look at the log in your own. Mm-hmm. And so no parent that I know of has ever done everything right. But I do believe there are parents that are understanding of their teammate, of their spouse, in what they're trying to do. And while they may not agree with the way they're engaging, they almost defer to that and say, you know what, that's developing another part of my child's life that I can't develop, and that's a good thing.
And a means to staying together as a team is making decisions together. If you're making two separate decisions and the teens are confused, that's not serving anybody very well.
That's right. And if you find yourself at a spot where you are making different decisions, if somebody says, well, you can stay out till midnight and I want you, and somebody else is saying I want you home at 11, I mean, there's got to be some agreement somewhere. And that's where I believe in putting together a system, a belief system of house rules and consequences so that you line it all out and parents do get on the same page with their strategy.
And perhaps most importantly, just be patient with each other.
Yeah.
I thank God for a patient wife. I know you do too.
That's right. If if you're having a struggling teen, you don't need to have a struggling marriage. You need to come together. If you have a teen that's going through some difficulties, it's a time in their life that you guys need to spend time with each other, engage with one another, and make sure that your relationship is strong.
Ephesians 5:33, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband.
That's right.
It says it all.
It does. That's the best thing.
Mark, thank you. We're going to continue this conversation with Chelsea Cameron here in a few moments on Parenting Today's Teens. But have you checked out Mark's book, Tough Guys and Drama Queens, yet? It's available online at parentingtodaysteens.org. And by the way, on the website, we have another Families in Crisis conference coming up soon. So check that out as well at parentingtodaysteens.org.
When your family is struggling and you feel like you're in a crisis, where do you go for help?
Mark Gregston, along with Heartlight Ministries, has created resources just for you. If you need help, turn to parentingtodaysteens.org.
What we've done is taken our 30 years of experience of working with kids and put those into resources and materials that can help you. Sometimes it takes a book. Sometimes it's a CD that perhaps can give you a word of encouragement.
When you've come to the end of yourself, you have a safe place to turn. It's parentingtodaysteens.org. Or call to speak with a ministry rep and get the resources that'll fit your situation. Call 866-700-FAMILY.
Well, these are tough days for kids, but I tell you what, they're tougher days for parents. And all of us need a little bit of help from time to time. Perhaps we can help you.
Resources from Mark Gregston, biblical wisdom and coaching. Call 866-700-FAMILY.
Chelsea, thanks for being on the program today.
It's my pleasure.
Hey, we're talking about how to stay on the same team with your spouse.
Yes.
You're married.
I am.
You've got a husband that's a neat fella and like 1 billion kids. And I mean, so in the confusion of 6 kids and being married and doing all that you do, how do you stay on the same team? Give us some insight here.
You know, that is a real challenge sometimes, especially when dad is not there all the time and you're dealing with the kids 24/7 and Kirk travels, and so you're trying to communicate by the phone or by Skype or by something. But I think both of us understand that it's so important for us to be a united front for our kids. We both respect each other enough that if we have differences about something, that we've learned to have enough self-control to talk about them at the proper time.
Yeah, not at the dinner table with the kids sitting around and watching you argue and stuff.
Exactly, because I just think it's so important. I think gives the kids a sense of security too, when mom and dad they know we disagree on things, but they also know that there's a time and a place to discuss it. I'm not going to undermine his authority. And I think that's huge. I think it's huge. And it's been hard for me because I'm a very, believe it or not, very opinionated
Really?
girl.
Really? I never would have picked that up.
And so I've had to learn to just step away and close my mouth. And just go, you know what? If that's what your dad wants you to do, then you need to do it.
Do you ever feel like when he comes, because I'm on flights all the time, and when dads come home.
Like I have to get out of the driver's seat?
Yeah, get out of the driver's seat, but then he wants to jump in the seat and say, I'm going to establish my authority here. Is it a little bit overboard sometimes? Because I think that'd be kind of a natural tendency of most men.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely a challenge.
And then
because I am running this ship.
That's
when he's gone, I am at the helm, and this is how we do it. And then he steps back, and you're like, oh, no, that's not really how we're doing it. And
then the kids start praying that he goes back out of town again. My wife looks at me and she goes, "Isn't it time for you to leave again?" You get used to that. And so, so to be on the same page becomes something difficult at times.
Yes, it absolutely does. But I think even if I don't agree with the way he's doing something, it's more important that I respect him. And I've learned that the hard way. I've learned that the hard way, and I'm always working on that.
By not respecting him and countering that?
By trying to, in the moment, get him to see that, well, there's another way we're doing it, and it's better. We're doing it this way. And so what happens is it just sort of, it never leads to anything good. I think it's, as I've grown, as God has worked on me, I've learned that it's more important that there's not that tension and dissension between the parents, and most of the time it's over things that aren't really all that important. So I've just learned to hold my tongue, and let dad lead.
Okay, and here's there's moms out there, single moms, and moms that have a disconnected husband from the kids, and they're sitting there going, okay, I'm in a situation. How do I, if we're not on the same page, then how do I function with that? What do I do to entrust my husband, or what do I do to my ex-husband who won't follow anything I'm doing? How do I do that?
Right. I think it's so important to understand that we cannot control another person.
Bingo.
We cannot. It is out of my reach of control. He is out, right? So the best I can do with the help of God is control myself. And I'm with the kids a lot, and I am going to do things the best that I can and try to get my part right. But I don't control him. And I know that God's working on both of us. And I don't think that it's my job to try to, as much as we all want to change our husbands and control the situation. We can't. It's not our job. God changes people, and He's out of my control. So I can try to get my part right. And when you stop trying to control everything and you just say, you know what, God's on that.
Yeah. My wife and I went through counseling once because she was really messed up, and so we were just struggling through some stuff. She had a lot of abuse in her life early on,
patient woman,
and I just had a mess, growing up, and so we kind of came together, and after 20 years of marriage, we decided to go get counseling because we just said, we're tired of being depressed, and we just need some help. And so, I mean, the bit of information that changed both of us, the way that we looked at each other, was when our counselor looked at us and she said, you guys need to quit trying to change one another.
Yes.
And you'd have a much better relationship.
Yes.
And it never hit me that I was spending most of my time trying to change my wife, and I was reacting to her for always trying to change me.
Right. Yep.
You ever have that?
Yes. We want to change them right there in the moment, and just tell them that's not the way I think it should be done, or and it just always leads to nothing.
Yeah, but but you know what? There's a normalcy with that, though. I mean, I think because we all are. I think we're all full of ourselves sometimes, and we think we know the right way.
Yeah, and
everybody has that because we're confident, and everybody wants great things for kids, but men and women look at parenting different. They look at roles different, and the tendency is if you and Kirk were like you, it'd be a mess. But if you and him were like him, it would be a mess. I mean, God joined us together for a reason to have differences of the way that we engage with our kids.
Absolutely.
Right.
We've been married 22 years. So
congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
Cool.
That's like 122 in Hollywood, isn't it?
Probably.
But I have a real conviction about unity in our home. And in order to do that, you're going to have to give up a lot of what you think is right all the time.
Yeah, you think that conviction is what has saved you and what has motivated you?
Yeah. For me, I have to give up some of my opinions and my rights for the sake of keeping unity in this family.
Here, say that again.
It's so important that I give up some of my opinions, some of what I think are my rights or what's right or what's wrong for the sake of unity in a family. And that happens a lot. And you have to practice it. And you have to, and you feel like saying those words. You don't act on those feelings. You act on what you know is right. And God produces a new feeling. It's like, I think that's a huge thing in parenting with your husband. You don't act on how you feel, what I feel like saying at this moment. It's the ability to step away from negative conflict. It's the ability to give up my opinion at this moment and act on what I know is right, not just on how I feel. Because you start acting on how you feel, you're just headed to a bad place.
Good point. Hey, thanks for being on the program today.
Oh, it's
excellent.
So much
always
fun.
Good talking to you.
Thank you.
Always is.
Thank you so much.
If you have a heart of compassion for young families struggling to hold things together, your donation to the Heartlight Foundation will reap eternal rewards. The Heartlight Foundation is a nonprofit organization funding ministries of compassion and instruction to moms and dads all across the country. Go online to parentingtodaysteens.org and click on the Donate Now button, parentingtodaysteens.org.
So grateful to have had Chelsea Cameron on the program here with us today. It sure sounds like she and Kirk are on the same page.
She is. And it's amazing to me that I appreciate her honesty about sometimes I have to give up my own opinions. Sometimes I have to give up my own thing, my own rights. And I look at that and I go, you know what? I think we all do. There's times I know with Jan and I that she deserves to be corrected or she deserves to be told what she's doing wrong.
And vice versa.
That's right, but a lot more on my side than the other.
I need to say that.
But I mean, it's amazing to me that even in a marriage relationship, I have to make sure that I'm not doing what is okay to do. I have to do what is needed. My wife doesn't need to hear my constant ridicule, even if she deserves it. So you know what I do? I give her something that she doesn't deserve. and it's called grace.
Yep.
And grace is saying, I can withhold some of my comments. I don't have to correct everything. I don't have to give her an opinion about when she backs the car into a tree or when she does something wrong or kills some plants that we have at our house.
I hope she didn't really do those things, by the way.
Well, she does, but there's a part of me that goes, there's a time that you can say that, but you're not going to, for my rights, I can say it, but I'm not going to solve anything. I'm just going to cause discord.
I'm with you.
That's right. And so I look at it. I mean, there's a scripture that says, let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds. And I find that it's very easy for me to do the other things that cause discord rather than to figure out how can we do this together. And I think that's really what Chelsea is speaking to, that we all have to give up some of our rights sometime for the sake of the betterment of the family, because some of those little rights, they don't really matter.
Something else I've noticed about you and Janet, you like to have fun together.
Oh, yeah.
And that's part of building that teamwork together. It's just, sometimes you just got to prescribe for yourself some fun.
That's right. Jan and I have learned how to laugh at our own shortcomings and our own difficulties and struggles, and Jan has some medical issues, and most people would tell you that I have some mental issues, and so we just sit and laugh. Somewhere along the line, it's good for a couple to have some fun together, and if they're not, then they need to find something they can do to have fun together, to enjoy one another, so that can rub off on their kids.
You mentioned this earlier, but I want to come back to it, and that is protecting time together as a couple. We feel so guilty for leaving our kids behind sometimes.
Yeah.
You've got to do that.
You have to do that because I think our kids will wear us out. I live with 60 high school kids. I've got to tell you, I can never meet all the needs. I'm also obsessive compulsive about completing things. And you know what? So I can live in frustration by not ever completing everything that I want to do or need to do. And somewhere along the line, you have to just go, you know what? Some things can remain untied, and while I focus on what I need to focus on, and that's my wife. And so we're going to spend some time together, and you know what? There may be some things that go wrong, but there's going to be some things that go right.
Yeah.
And it's more important for me to have that relationship with my wife bound together and supporting one another and saying, it's okay for us to be different, sweetheart, but we've got to follow the same strategy.
That's the greater good being served there. Mark, thank you for this topic today. Husbands and wives on the same team. And if you want to pass this program on to someone else, or maybe your spouse didn't get a chance to hear it and you want them to, it's available online at parentingtodaysteens.org. Mark's books are also available online, parentingtodaysteens.org. It's Tough Guys and Drama Queens, available at a special discounted price. And on the website, there's soon to be another Families in Crisis conference. So check that out online at parentingtodaysteens.org or by calling our toll-free number 866-700-FAMILY. For Mark Gregson, I'm Wayne Shepherd. Thanks for listening today. I hope you'll join us next week for Parenting Today's Teens.